the worst Ange ball that we've seen this season.
And also, there's been a lot of choice for having some poor performances.
Yes, there is.
That was one of the worst performances I've actually ever seen him have.
I think it's the senior players that are letting Ange down. Yes, I do think that.
There's so much hype around it. Argentina and being linked with Real Madrid. He's having a laugh if he thinks he could end up at Real Madrid.
He seems to appreciate Argentina more than Spurs at the moment. But I don't care what happens in the league anymore. Thursday, and Az Alkmaar is the
cup final already.
It's the be-all and end-all of the season. It's the cup final. We're not getting into Europe unless we win the Europa League, which will be incredible season in my opinion. You win the Europa League.
Oh, yeah. Of course, we'd all absolutely take that.
Sometimes I watch his pre and post match, and I think, yeah, I'd love to play for him. Then sometimes I think, would he inspire me? People love a drop-off. People love a drop-off of big clubs. And whether people like to accept it, Spurs are a big club globally. Spurs seem to be the favourites that people love to have a dig at. And yeah.
The thing is, he's got to take some risks on Thursday, because if he doesn't throw the kitchen sink at this, then he's out the door.
I'm going to put my neck on the line. I think we go through.
Bergwall scored an own goal, and he was still the best player on the pitch.
Welcome to Inside Spurs, talkSPORT's dedicated show every week where we talk all things Tottenham Hotspur. I'm your host, Abbi Summers, and I'm delighted to be joined once again by ex-pro and big Spurs fan Darren Ambrose, and welcoming back talkSPORT's very own Sonny Snelling. Nice to see you guys.
Nice to be here.
Look, God, we had a little break last week, didn't we? Yeah, well, we've got some players back. And do you know what? We didn't lose. I'm starting it on a little bit of a positive. Yep. We had Bournemouth at the weekend, and Spurs were 2-0 down, and they fought back. I say fought back, maybe it was more on Bournemouth that we got back into it. But yeah, we did draw that game 2-2. Let's be honest, it wasn't a good performance.
No.
Following on from another really poor performance after having 8 days off against Az Alkmaar in the Europa League last week. I have always been very much Ange in on that Ange train. Even I think I might be softening to the fact that I might have to get off the train before there's a crash.
Yes, I'm the same. I've always been Ange in, and I still want it to work. I want it to work against Az Alkmaar. I want us to go through there, as we all do. But this is unique for me. I'm normally in here when we've won, but now I'm in here after a game we haven't won.
But we haven't lost, though.
We've drew. And you know what? The positives is the second half performance. Az Alkmaar was terrible. We know that.
100%.
They chose that. The most important game to probably play the worst Ange ball that we've seen this season.
And also, there's been a lot of choice for having some poor performances.
Yes, there is.
Every cup game this season.
That one was the worst. But we took that into the first half against Bournemouth, and I thought we were terrible. Look, you can blame mistakes for the first goal particularly, but you have to credit Kirke's delivery was fantastic. So if that was one of us, we'd be lording over it. So that was brilliant. And you say it, Bournemouth let us back in it, but I think the positives is that second half performance, and we come back against a side that have beaten a lot of good teams this season. Probably Bournemouth's best team ever in the Premier League.
By a mile.
Yeah, I mean,
they're no mugs.
They beat Nottingham Forest 5-0. They drew with Newcastle, beat Arsenal. They beat Spurs 1-0 in the reverse fixture. That second half performance we can hopefully build on going into the most important game of the season.
Yeah, I just feel like I'd love Spurs to take this result and then run with it, go into this Thursday game. You know, hope that the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium can be a cauldron, because Az Alkmaar, they brought the atmosphere in that first leg. But it's Spurs, it's Tottenham, and you just don't know what you're going to get. You know, every time we go out there at the moment, the optimism has gone from the stadium. You can tell from the atmosphere, sort of lifted when Sarr's goal went in, but you can tell the fan base are tired, and I think Ange is on a lot of borrowed time.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we will talk about Ange a little bit more in depth later on in the show. But I feel like with that game against Bournemouth, like they are, as I said, they're no mugs. They're a very good team in terms of an attacking sense. They are absolutely brilliant. The team that they have assembled, and also they've done it on a pretty decent budget as well. They invested the Solanke money really well. It is the first time I think that they have beat us across both fixtures, but that just shows you the disparity, you know, kind of where Spurs are this season, you know, flailing kind of mid to lower end of the table, whereas Bournemouth are on the rise. it's just really the level of performance that I think irks me the most. That's what annoyed me about Thursday night. Like I mentioned, having that amount of time off, we were crying out, to have some rest time, and we were saying get the players back. And there are no excuses now. There's nowhere to hide for this team and for Ange. And I just feel like I don't think they're necessarily downing tools. I just don't think the system is actually really working. Because if you have a look at the game yesterday, they're just able to just 1-2 passes, just bypass the midfield. Basuma, who has a collection of poor performances, that we can all go and look at the catalogue of, that was one of the worst performances I've actually ever seen him have. And obviously he was hooked at half-time. Brennan Johnson, unless he's doing back post Brennan, and I know that there is this narrative that he only, he just scores tap-ins, but if he's not doing that, he doesn't actually contribute much else. And Romero, we can give him the benefit of the doubt. He was rusty coming back into the side. But honestly, we could have been 2-0 down, Darren, in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, 2 or 3-0 down. I thought it was a terrible start. And before the game, I said to my son, can you imagine the start of the season? You're talking about Spurs starting this game in 13th with 10 games to go, and Bournemouth looking to get into Europe.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. No one would have ever expected that. You'd expected that the reverse, or even Bournemouth struggling a little bit. But look, they've done a tremendous job, but it wasn't about them playing particularly well. It was the poor first half that we had. And I look at it as a player's point of view, and I think confidence is massive in football. It's massive in a team sport in particular. And if 2 or 3 of your players are not performing to the highest of their ability, or their confidence is low, you're going to feel that. And they got booed off at half time, and rightly so. I never like hearing that from home supporters. I've been involved in it when I've been involved individually getting booed from your home supporters, and it's never nice. But these players need to step up. They need to step up. And I thought second half they did. I thought they come out, they showed some fight. They showed, because first half I thought they're not playing for Ange. They're not playing for him at all. You could see that. Second half, I thought, actually, they are. So the inconsistent.
There was a change in personnel, wasn't there? As you said, Johnson and Basuma went off. You saw Son come on, who obviously won the pen, scored the pen, and Lucas Bergvall, who's been exceptional. Archie Gray kind of got that rest. So, are we saying that it's the senior players that aren't playing for Ange particularly? Or?
I think it's the senior players that are letting Ange down. Yes, I do think that, and they'll know that. We've heard interviews of them speaking, and they say the same thing. And every one of them always credit the young players coming in. And look, Lucas Bergvall, I watched the Ipswich game at Portman Road. I went to the Man City game and the game when he come on. The star player. He is a special talent. Along with Archie Gray, along with Jed Spence. We've spoken about those guys before. The senior players need to step up and give these babies really in the team some help. They need to, because the confidence, as I said, is massive. And these young players, you see with Brennan Johnson, their confidence is going to take a massive dent if the senior players don't take some responsibility.
Yeah.
Is it because these senior players, you reckon, they've seen Mourinho, they've seen Conte, they've gone through the ringer, they've been at the club for like some of them 10 plus years, and they've just had enough, do you reckon?
I think sometimes, I've been a young player, I've been a senior player. As a young player, you're fresh. You have no fear. Even if the crowd are on the backs of the team, you don't really care, because you just want to go out and impress and show what you're about. If you're a senior pro, you take everything on board, and your confidence takes a dent. And if your confidence as a senior pro takes a knock, then you're struggling as a football club. If you've got Son, the captain, who he's done well against Ipswich, he done particularly well yesterday in the second half, but his form's been really poor, and he will take that on board. He knows it, and you can see sometimes in his body language, if the captain is like that, then you know you're struggling.
From the top, it just trickles down. Even yesterday, there was a moment where I think Jamie Carragher said it on commentary. He did his old jinking run and then let go. We haven't seen that enough from Son this season. It's sort of like he's a yard off, his pace has gone, and we're seeing that with a few older players in the Premier League. But I think from your captain, he's a different. We said it with Basong the other week. He's a different sort of captain. He's like, he leads by example. But when he's not leading by example, then what are these 18-year-olds meant to do after that?
But who else we got? Who else we got as a captain? I know going off track a little bit.
Romero, and you've got James Maddison. So James Maddison again is in and out of the team. I assume that is to do with rotation. Romero again. I think. Or I personally feel like he's more bothered maybe about Argentina than he is about Spurs. He's angling away for him to get, I think, out of the club this summer, and I think that we probably will see him go. So when you've got people like that, when they start, I think they start to believe that they're bigger than the club or better than the club, but I don't necessarily believe that the performances I see in terms of Romero personally, are that great. I think that there's a lot of hype over Romero, and people love that he goes flying into challenges and stuff like that. But it's like, if you're going to lead.
Well, he's a little bit of a liability, isn't he? At times, sometimes he could be the best defender at the club. Sometimes there was a moment down in the corner. I can't remember who. I think it might have been Semenyo, and you knew he was just going to fly in and give away a foul, and it was like, he's going nowhere. Just relax. I go back, and we're going off track a bit in terms of, we've spoken about a lack of leadership on the pitch, and I believe that. Yes, he has to get a little bit more vocal. I mean, Harry Redknapp said, didn't he, that he wouldn't have Son as a captain. Archie Gray is a future captain of this football club. And I think, I was listening to Mark Gay at Crystal Palace, he said when he was given the captaincy, he went to the senior players, Wilf Zaha, people like that, and explained that he's been given the captaincy. He said no to start with, and they all said, no, you are the future of this football club. You are the one that needs to have it. I think, to a certain degree, in the summer, something needs to be sorted out. And yes, I want Son to still be here and perform. Take the pressure off him.
Take the pressure off him. It's like in cricket, they took the England captaincy off Joe Root, and then he became a better batsman afterwards. Yeah. It just does happen for some. It's sometimes just a weight on their shoulders.
I'm just not sure about taking the captaincy off him personally, because I maybe I'm harsh, but I felt like his performances were dropping off last season. I can actually talk about him in a positive light because of his impact off the bench. I think that's where I kind of sit with him, that in the summer I thought that was a key area we need to upgrade on. I wasn't saying get rid of Son, but I think it was probably the most important area that Spurs needed to replace, get that, whoever that was, whether that was going to be an Eze or whoever else they were looking at, get that upgrade so you're not reliant on Son, so that he can have an impact off the bench for the last 20 minutes or half an hour or a second half of a game. I don't necessarily mind him being the captain if you've got other leaders around. That's fine. Like Hugo Lloris was our captain, who knows what he was like in the dressing room. But most people probably thought Harry Kane was our captain, who again wasn't really a big shouter. But even if you go back, like Jan Vertonghen or Toby Alderweireld, or you had big characters in that team, or Kyle Walker, but back in the Poch days, we don't have a figure like that at the moment. So if that's going to be one of the other captains, the vice captains, in a Maddison or Romero, you need to have performances that also match that. I don't think we can have that reliance on Son, but I don't necessarily mind him being that captain. Yeah,
sometimes I've been there. I think I was at Birmingham, I think it was. Curtis Davies was captain. Stephen Carr was club captain. I think there's an element that you could do that and give Son the club captaincy, but on the pitch you have a different captain. Because are we saying next season Son's going to start every single game? No, he shouldn't.
He'll get phased out, won't he?
He'll get phased out to a certain degree, or he'll be an impact player off the bench, which is perfect. It should have been. So you need someone that's going to play week in, week out. And yes, I'm saying take the pressure off Son, and then I'm saying on another sentence, give it to a teenager, put that pressure on a teenager. But he can handle it. We've seen that this season, that he can handle those situations.
He absolutely can, Archie Gray. I mean, obviously he's now, since we last filmed, he's London's Young Player of the Year. And, I love that. I love that he won that. Some people will say, oh no, it should be Ethan Nwaneri or this one. No, like he's really been the only good thing about Spurs, him, Bergwijn, etc. Like, that's it. And he's done a lot in his first season in the Prem and carried Spurs. So I see those leadership qualities. I just want to touch on in terms of XG. I mean, Spurs' XG yesterday, including the pen, was 1.62. Bournemouth had an XG of 3.19. And again, XG conceded. Spurs this season is absolutely awful. I think West Ham, Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton only have worse conceded XG than us. So you're looking at where we are and the company we're keeping. And that then does point back to the manager, doesn't it?
Yes, and I look at those clubs that you mentioned. I've not seen too much of West Ham this season, but I've watched Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton all of last season and a lot this season. What they all do is play out from the back at the wrong times, and that's what Spurs do, and that's why the XG is so high against, because you're giving away silly chances. There was moments in the game against Bournemouth that we're looking at it. Vicario's running for the ball to run back to take a goal kick when they've just had an attack, and there's like 6 Bournemouth players and like 3 or 4 Spurs players, and played it out from the back. And Romero, I know we're going to touch on his rustiness, but I felt for him. I felt for him, because the one thing, you come into the team, you don't want to be put in that position when you're in your own box.
Well, not in the first minute of a game, definitely.
I just don't think we do ourselves any favours. And it's been the case for years. We did this under Conte.
Agreed.
So many individual errors leading to goals. And I just don't think... I mean, the way that Premier League football has changed, we all want to play out from the back, but sometimes you have to see what you've got in front of you. Like Southampton, you mentioned there, they can't play out from the back. They haven't got the personnel. We'd like to think we have got the personnel, but even when we didn't have Romero and Mickey van der Ven at the back, we're still going. We've got it in the corner. We're not like hitting the channels. And you just think, like yesterday, we had Dominic Solanke up top. Just hit him. Just go long sometimes. Like, it sounds like a dinosaur approach when people say that now, but sometimes it's the best
needs
thing.
must, right? I don't think it's a dinosaur approach at all. I think if you can see in the first few minutes of most games, Spurs are under it, right? You're sloppy balls, really loose in possession. If you know that you can't play out from the back like that, then don't do it. I'm not saying you have to hit a long ball up to Solanke every single time, but if you know it plays completely into the opposition's hands, like we'll use Bournemouth as the example, you know that they're going to press you high because they know that you're going to play out from the back. They know that you're going to probably be loose in possession, and they did that from minute one.
They
it
still
proved
do
right,
it afterwards,
and they continue to do it throughout the whole game. And we see this week in, week out. We've seen this under so many different managers. So is that then on the manager to then adapt on?
Yes, 100% it's on the manager. 95% of that's on the manager. The other 5% are on the players. Sometimes you have to take it upon yourself as a player to go, we ain't playing short anymore because we keep getting caught out. So that, but I played under Neil Warnock at Crystal Palace, and he was the not the long ball merchant, because he wasn't. Everyone believes he was,
nonsense.
but no nonsense. His method was they cannot score if it's as far away from the goal as possible.
Well, it's true.
And we had big target men up front. Yes, we'd play out from the back because we had good fullbacks that could. We had Nathaniel Klein one side. Who'd we have left back? Clint Hill, I think, was playing left back. We could play with the ball, but he was like, get it upfield. Let's get the knockdowns. Let's get the flick-ons.
Sometimes you have to just go back to basics, right?
Exactly. And when their team pushes back, you can then play out from the back and do what you're about.
It's the whole system not suiting these players, because you've got Pedro Porro as a right back where he's maybe suited as a wing back. You've got Son on the wing where, Ange wants his wingers high and wide, and he wants to cut in and make something happen. You've got Brennan Johnson who can't take on a man. You've got midfield, like the midfield, there's no creativity yesterday. So to me, it is square pegs round holes.
But when you look at that midfield yesterday, like, I wasn't actually, when I saw the team sheet, I was like, okay, so what we're going to do here, they're going to let Bentancur sit, have Basuma a little bit more forward in kind of that 8 role, which we saw him at Brighton. We've never seen the best of him at Spurs, let's be honest. So a little bit more of a double pivot there, plus you've got the legs from Sarr. So I thought, well, actually, that's not a bad thing, because maybe we'll see Basuma be able to get forward and be a bit more creative like we did see him do, and kind of connect the dots. That was the most awful performance, like I said earlier. I mean, absolutely terrible from him. He's not it. I think we need to just, he weren't that expensive, 25 mil, we need to cash that in the summer. Just try and get what you can and upgrade. But I didn't actually mind that particular personnel. I think with Porro, I would always have Spence there for me, Spence and Udogie. I think in terms of defensively, that does add a little bit more stability for you. I think we spoke about it with Seb a couple of weeks ago. I would rather have that. Brennan Johnson can take or leave. For me, why would we not potentially explore Porro maybe in that forward role? In that forward role, we know he's a great crosser of the ball. He can get forward. That's fine. He's not the best defensively, but allow him to then actually maybe make that his own position. What we need and what we lack are those good balls in the final third and balls into the box. So why would we not explore that when we actually don't have... We've got a lot of options, a lot of different wingers, but none of them are actually really at the level that can impact a game or help. It's just we've got a lot of average wingers.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with what Sonny said in terms of the personnel we have on the pitch. We can't really play out from the back too much. Why not go long? Get the runners. We've got pace up front. We've got Solanke, who is big and strong and can hold the ball up. Get runners in and around him. Get Bergvall in and around him as well. Because I look at the players that you mentioned, Basuma, Sarr, and when I talk about confidence, that you can be confident in terms of your actions. And I'm not saying they're hiding from the ball, but sometimes they make runs when they should be coming to get the ball. Exactly. Archie Gray in there would. Bergvall, who I think has been our star, along with Archie Gray and Jed Spence, always looking for the ball.
Always.
Gets the ball, makes a mistake, always going to get the ball. And I love that about him and about players. There's a few not taking responsibility. There's a few making runs away from the ball when they should be coming short.
Ones.
So how can you play from the back if no one's showing? You can't.
No, I absolutely agree with you. We did welcome back Christian Romero yesterday. We also saw Mickey van der Ven. Every time Mickey tries to run, I'm just like, hamstring. I get all nervous. We did touch on, again, how sloppy Romero was. Is that just rustiness? Some people I saw online were saying, oh, no, we shouldn't be starting Romero. Well, how else? We've got to get them back in. Like, we need to get them back in the side. They've got to play.
That's the thing. I'm not the professional footballer in the room, or former professional footballer, but I know there's a difference between fitness and match fitness.
Of course.
And he's not match fit at all. You can tell by the decisions early on in that game, just as we were saying, play it long, that he's just got it in the corner, he doesn't know what to do, he's got the pressure of the pressing players, and he isn't doing any of the other players any favours, like Danzo, who, they haven't played together as a partnership. Vicario's just recently back as well. I mean, we're saying about match fitness, he's come back and been absolutely fantastic. Some of the saves he was making yesterday, kept it down to just 2, but I think with Romero, the problem is there's so much hype around it, and you mentioned it, like it's all like Argentina and being linked with Real Madrid. He's having a laugh if he thinks he could end up at Real Madrid.
I totally agree with that.
Silly.
But he probably actually would go to Madrid and be really good because it's also who you're playing next to.
Yeah.
But I found it very telling that in his tweet post-match, he was thanking Argentina for helping him get back fit.
Says how bad our medical team is.
It does. Well, to be fair, when you've had 13, 14 injuries this season, and it's an ongoing thing, we've always had quite a busy medical room. But that's quite damning, isn't it, when you're saying basically the club staff in that medical team can't get you back, so you've had to go back to Argentina to help yourself.
Yeah, and I think, as you said earlier, that he seems to appreciate Argentina more than Spurs at the moment. And saying that, I'm glad he started. I am. I'm glad he got minutes under his belt, because I think he should be playing. He's alongside Van der Ven. He's our best centre half, and that's no criticism to Danso. I thought it's been great, and Archie Gray, when he fills in, is great. But those two are who you want to play in our most important game, and so I'm glad he played. I'm glad he hopefully got some of that rustiness out of himself. And when he plays with Van der Ven, he's not so much of a liability, because for some reason he can
we've barely
control it.
Actually seen it. I think it's been like 16 times that we've seen that actual first choice back four, but I can't even remember the last time I saw them replay together.
But it'll be great.
Was it, or Palace?
Oh yeah, Ipswich. That was
when we lost.
When we lost, yeah.
But
maybe we don't want them back together.
They're just so good because they set the tempo. They have most of the ball between the players in that team, and we saw it as the game went on. Romero can find that pass to break the lines. Same as Van der Ven, he'll do the running instead and just break into midfield. Whereas like Archie Gray and Danzo are a bit more conservative with the ball. So that is important, but the problem is we haven't seen a lot of it, and the argument comes with Ange. Do we keep him because he's getting the team back? But if the team's still performing like this when they're all back, then it's a bigger issue.
Do we need to be kinder in the sense that I'm still really trying to stay on the Ange train here? So do we need to be kinder in the fact that it's only their first couple games back and there is that rustiness with match fitness? Do we wait and see what happens on Thursday? And then if we go out to Alkmaar, then we have to call it a day? Or is it let's just see out the season because the season is effectively a write-off anyway? What difference would Ryan Mason do, and then just evaluate in the summer? Well,
in all honesty, it's hard to say, but I don't care what happens in the league anymore. Thursday, and AZ Alkmaar is the
cup final already.
It's the final.
It's the be all and end all of the season. It's the cup final, and you have to go out. You have to play your best team. I'd like to see Archie Gray in midfield. I'd like to see, because you talk about when Van der Ven runs forward and his hamstring, but how good is it to see when you've got that pace going forward, and Archie Gray would just drop in there into centre half. Is perfect. Everything seems to be coming together. The players are coming back. The second half performance against Bournemouth, it seems to be coming together. But we sat here before the Liverpool game, didn't we? And we were so optimistic, and nothing come of that. So I'm just hoping everything clicks. And I agree. What's the point in changing it? I've heard people saying, get rid now. get rid of Ange now and bring someone in, new manager bounce. You can't.
Where are we bouncing to? With the greatest respect, Spurs are 13th still on 34 points. United
bounce to 12.
I mean, where are we bouncing to? We can't even bounce to 12th at this point because United didn't close the gap yesterday. Yeah. Brentford again, they lost at the weekend. Yeah. So Spurs are still going to just be bopping about in around 13th, 14th, position at the moment, depending on what happens with United. So, what's the point? Might as well just let the rest of the season go and see what happens.
Yeah, I think just wait until the summer and reassess, because also the options who to bring in. We're saying about, Iraola yesterday was that is, dress rehearsal ahead of the summer. But one, why would he want to? Because obviously this team now he's building at Bournemouth could get into Europe. Some good players. I know they could get, Semenyo could leave, Kirkis could leave. But also, he won't want to look at Tottenham now. He'll be looking higher. He'll be looking, say, Carlo Ancelotti was to leave Real Madrid. Yeah. Could he do a job there? Like, go back to Spain? I think we've really, done ourselves up here. And I've, like you two, I've been a big supporter of Ange. But at the moment, I'm not seeing any positives because the style of play hasn't been there. Even with the players coming back, I think we've made some mistakes in the transfer window. Was so panicky in that January window. And it's just a shame because that squad I still think has got a lot of potential to be higher than 13th in the Premier League table.
100%.
But then what is our ceiling now? I'm not sure where we go next.
12.
We've done everything.
We're not getting into Europe unless we win the Europa League, which will be incredible season in my opinion. You win the Europa League.
Of course, we'd all absolutely take that.
I look at Ange sometimes and sometimes I watch his pre and post match and I think, I'd love to play for him. Then sometimes I think, would he inspire me? It's that inconsistency of Ange. Is that creating the inconsistency in the team? I don't know. Does he come into the change room like that? We don't know. I'm trying to imagine
his team talk yesterday, because does he go in and go hell for leather and Fergie hairdryer, or does he go in and go, right guys? Because sometimes we come out when we're leading at half time and then we go 1-1, 2-1 down really in quick succession.
I've tried to ask, by the way. I know their fitness coach. I've tried to ask what he's like.
I was wondering if you knew.
I've just been left on 2 blue ticks. They don't get back to me. But
I don't know what he would be like in that dressing room, but I think the players also have to be accountable for their performances as well. It can't just... We've done this, like we always say, we've had 14, 15, 16 different managers, right, under Enoch and Levy and whatever. Like, the players, I know they're not the same players that were necessarily there under Conte or whatever, but... You have to take accountability for yourself.
100%.
And I feel like they get away with so much and get lots of manager sacks over the years, Poch being one. And you have to also look at your own performances.
Yeah, the buck stops with the manager. We know that. Yeah. Managers end up losing their jobs. They get a nice payout when that does happen, but they end up losing their jobs. Ange doesn't want that to happen. No. We know that. Seems the players don't want that to happen, but Az Alkmaar first half against Bournemouth, they were rubbish. Let's be honest, they were rubbish. They weren't playing to anywhere near their capabilities and their ability. So they have to take responsibility as well as Ange, to be honest.
I wonder, there was a bit of talk on Twitter as well about his post-match interview with the in-house media. And usually when they ask him a question being like, this is a positive going into Thursday, he usually would bat it away. But then he was just playing up to it and going, yeah, it's a positive. So it makes me think what's going through his head at the moment as well?
Well, I think it's tough for him. I actually think he is a good manager. Yeah. I think that I like the style of play. I liked it when he was at Celtic. I liked it. I think we all liked it when he first came to Spurs. It just seems like it's just so inconsistent. Maybe the intensity of the Prem is probably why it can't be sustained, and that's why we get so many injuries.
More games a week, isn't it?
More games that we have. Obviously, it's a lot more games. Well, I guess Celtic were in Europe, I guess. But I don't know. It is different. I know what people will say it's different, doing it in the J League or in the SPL, but I do think he would probably go somewhere else and be successful again, and we've seen that with so many different managers. So I always feel like the bottom line will always come back to one thing and one thing only, which is Spurs.
People love a drop-off.
People
love a drop-off of big clubs, and whether people like to accept it, Spurs are a big club globally. They love Manchester United, who have dropped off this season. When Chelsea done it, everyone loves it. Spurs seem to be the favourites that people love to have a dig at.
Isn't it?
Exactly. And Ange, look, when he first arrived, was the media darling. Everyone loved him. Now everyone's questioning his rudeness. He's never walked out of an interview, let's just say that.
Certain other managers have across North London. There was another banner yesterday. There was some more protests going on as well towards, wanted to obviously highlight that because Change for Spurs are very, very on it. The banner yesterday was "There is no passion here. This is purely financial," which was a quote from Mr. Daniel Levy himself back in 2001 when they took over the club. So not that I think he's bothered by it, not that I think anything's going to change, but long may it continue. Long may it continue with these banners. We love to see them. So positivity. We'll do positivity corner, shall we?
Yes.
Because
have to.
We need it.
Why not? Look, the result could have been worse. We could have had another loss. It would have been our 19th loss in all competitions. We're still sitting on 18th. I feel like I'm watching 90 Spurs, guys.
Yeah.
It's
disgusting.
It's not great. Vicario, though, we did touch on it. Like, he had a really good performance, and since coming back from injury, I think it's very clear now. I mean, Kinski had his moments. Young keeper coming into a big and bad situation at Spurs, but it's definitely cemented Vicario, hasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Vicario is Spurs' number one, and every goalkeeper that has filled in has done a good job. Kinski come in, has done a good job, but he's not Vicario. Vicario, you can tell, apart from those little rush of blood that I call it, running to get the ball and playing out. But I think that's the tactics as opposed to himself.
As a shot stopper, he's brilliant.
As a shot, like you said, it could have been a lot more. First 5 minutes could have been 3-0, and we could have lost that game dramatically if it wasn't for Vicario. So we've been very negative, really, in the opening of the show, but we have to be honest. We're all concerned about what's happened this season, but
Just a bit.
we've got the biggest game of our season coming up, and it's all seems to be clicking into the place for me with the players coming back.
We're really doing positivity corner. Do you feel the same way?
Not as positive, but I feel like some of the players are just. Thursday's come too soon, because even Dominic Solanke, and I think he's been one of our better players this season, even though his goals haven't shown. A lot of people like on Twitter and social media will say, well, he's only scored 7 goals in the Premier League, but he's more than that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But yesterday you can tell he's just, that match fitness is just a little bit, that he had a good few touches, and that's where I liked it when he was dropping deep, bringing the wingers into play, but there's just those moments where it's like he's just not up to the speed as of yet. But I'm hoping that Ange is going to take the thing is, he's got to take some risks on Thursday, because if he doesn't throw the kitchen sink at this, then he's out the door. So maybe he's going to have to bring in these players who they've had minutes here and there and just sort of see what happens, play the team we want to see, maybe Gray, Bergvall, Maddison in midfield, because he could be handed his P45 on Friday morning.
Well, exactly. And on top of that, he could also potentially get Manager of the Month on Friday as well. So that would be the Spursiest thing ever. You get sacked after going out of the Europa League, and you also win Manager of the Month. And the season ticket prices go up as well. That's just a very Spursy Friday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just
you know what?
normal day at Spurs.
Sorry, I turned it negative again, didn't I? I didn't mean to.
I'm going to put my neck on the line. I think we go through. I think we go through against AZ Alkmaar. I think we were so bad in the first game, and it could have been a lot worse. We're taking 1-0.
We've been here before against the Dutch side.
We're taking 1-0, who are better Dutch side as well, by the way.
Better Dutch side, yeah.
If we can perform even 60-70% of our capabilities, we go through.
I agree.
But if we play in the first half against Bournemouth, or the performance against AZ Alkmaar, we go out.
I think that what helps is also the second leg is at home. I know that obviously the atmosphere hasn't been brilliant. I know that fans like us are also, really annoyed and just angry.
Saying that, sorry, and I'm interjecting there, but I was at Portman Road. The away support at Portman Road, I know it's 4-1, were unbelievable. I went to Man City in midweek at home. It was more against the ownership, the players and the manager. The atmosphere was tremendous. So Daniel Levy and the club are lucky to have a fan base that are sticking by the team so much. Yeah. Not so much them, but by the team. But I think
didn't Vicario call out last week at Alkmaar?
Yeah. It was Bergvall, wasn't it? They seemed to be
they were
giving
doing
a bit
sort
of
of
grief.
G'ing up as if say, come on.
Right, and then at the end of the game, they went over and said something. 950 Spurs fans are there again.
Travelled all that way.
It travels all that way. It's a lot of money to go. Their performances really don't warrant, Spurs fans spending their very hard-earned money to do that. And I just feel like when you drop a zero performance, you've got to take your licks a little bit.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there I've been in Europe when you play poor. I've been at away games, cup games when you play poor, and the away fan. It's not nice if you're a player going over there. But you have to go over there. You're a player of their football club. It's the fans' football club at the end of the day. When you're a player, you don't recognise that enough. You don't. And the response of Vicario was, I'm backing my team. Whereas you've seen European sides standing there in front of the ultras, just taking a barrage of abuse. And then it changes to they then start becoming positive and then getting behind the team. To a certain degree, the players need to take responsibility. It's been poor. But you can change that. You can change that around.
With just a moment as well.
Yeah,
it doesn't take a full 90 minutes. Just turn up on Thursday, put in your all.
Yeah.
And then, the next game after that won't be easy, Ajax or Frankfurt. Yeah. But you just got to play what's in front of you. Because AZ Alkmaar aren't a great team.
No, and obviously we'd already played them this season as well. I think that, all fans want, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just to see the performance, right? All they want is to see you giving your all for the shirt, for the badge. And what I would say about having the second leg at home is that when Spurs fans need to come together and try and galvanise, they will do it. Yes. So the atmosphere should be great. I mean, I don't know if the budget will stretch to flags on Thursday night. Sometimes we've had a TIFO or a budget, or I don't know. Let's see what the budget can do if they can spare some money, Tottenham. If you're listening to this, but we should see probably Gray and Bergvall in that midfield. They were. I know Bergvall came on second half yesterday, but he was rested. Archie Gray had a good long rest. Maddison again came on but didn't start. So was that kind of an indictment that those are the players that were on the bench yesterday are going to be the ones that start the game on Thursday?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, we're saying about passion there. Bergvall scored an own goal and he was still the best player on the pitch in the reverse fixture. I think that midfield is more like there's more attack, more defence. It's a better balance. It's a better blend of players. Even if Maddison hasn't been our best player, we haven't got Kulusevski at the moment, so he is our one creator. And I think, it's a shame. I don't know what's happened with Mikey Moore. I mean, Mikey Moore in the first game against Alkmaar in the league stages was fantastic against them, but we haven't seen him for a while, so I don't know what's happened there. But I think, those bench players, Solanke got some minutes in the leg, so that was good. I think the right wing's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if he'll go for Johnson or maybe another option. Does he bring Tell back into the fold and play him off the wing, Son on the other side? But I think the rest of the team sort of picks itself. You mentioned the defence there. I think Udogie and Spence, and then probably Mickey and Christian Romero at the back.
You'd think they would
I'd love him to go really strong, because I know he did it against Chelsea, didn't he? Threw the centre-backs back in, but I'm like, I'll take that if it just gets us through to another stage to try and put it all out there. Because we're saying about how Rusty Romero is as well. You can change the opinions on you by just going out there, putting in a shift, and if we spank them 4-0, then it gets forgotten, that first leg and all that, and it's just it's what the club needs, and that's why I'm hoping the Bournemouth result, pardon the pun, spurs them on, because it never usually seems to, but I'm still hopeful that it can for one time only.
I mean, let's be honest, it's not the first time we've seen us have an absolutely dreadful performance in Europe, is it? I mean, it's not the first time we've seen maybe better Spurs teams than what we've got have terrible performances. Jed Spence nominated for Premier League Player of the Month for Feb. I mean, very well deserved. I mean, hopefully we'll see him also get an England call up. Although I will say he was a little bit at fault for that goal. Yesterday, even though I think a lot of us blamed fully.
He's human.
He's human, and it's okay. He's pretty flawless other than that. What do we do with Jed then? He stays in?
He has to play. We've spoken about this many times. He's undroppable for me. Yes, he was caught out of position a little bit. I don't even think he was caught out of position. I just don't think he was aware of Tavernier coming in behind him. And the Kirkhead's cross was fantastic. Could he have got there? Who knows? If he knew he was there, could he have made it? Who knows? It looked inch perfect to me, but he's undroppable. Either Udogie or Porro has to miss out.
There is a part of me that has this feeling that he will revert back to that type back four. I just have a feeling on it.
The problem is, and we all know this, if he does that and we do go out, that one decision there is going to come back to haunt him for sure, because we've spoken about it. I know many Spurs fans feel the same. Cech could play anywhere for me. He could play anywhere. He never loses the ball. He's got such good control, such good touch. He's fast, he's strong, he's powerful. Udogie maybe, and Spence back onto his favoured right. I see a little bit of that at Portman Road, and I thought he was magnificent, to be honest, out there. So he can play anywhere. He just has to play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why. I just have this feeling that just the comments that he's made, like, you know, when everyone's back, he's been good at filling in. But I think that, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it will be unforgivable to get rid of Jed. Let's talk more then about the Europa League. How do you feel, Sonny, like about Thursday?
I mean, if we're going off what the season has shown us so far, not confident at all, because in these big games, whether it be Villa in the FA Cup, Liverpool in the second leg of the Carabao Cup final, it's just not been good enough. There's not been the passion there. It's not been like, go out there and put in a performance that warrants a good result. And, you know, we were lucky it was 1-0 in that first leg. It could have been a lot worse, again, if it wasn't for Vicario. But you mentioned there, it's home. We've got a home tie. The Spurs fans can get behind this team, and then anything can happen. Because this Europa League, I think it's our best chance. And I said that at the beginning of the season, because, you know, in the Carabao Cup we had a tricky run. We had City, United, then Liverpool. With this, there's some good teams in Europe. You've got Athletic Club Bilbao, you've got Lazio. I mean, Man United, not a good club, but, you know, it would still be a heavy tie. But I just feel like this has got, all the eggs have got to go in this basket. Like you said, Darren, about forget the Premier League, that's done and dusted. This is where, you know, we've got such good history with this competition. We've won it twice. Even get to the final, just show and give it your all, because I think AZ Alkmaar, I mentioned them there, I was a bit harsh on them, but they are like a lower level Premier League team. They were missing some
like
of their...
us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, true. But they were missing some of their key players in that first leg. I think it's like Van Bommel's son plays for them. He wasn't in the team. They've got some tricky wingers, and Troy Parrott luckily hasn't scored yet against us.
Kiss of death, that.
They're there to be had. And I feel like we got, you know, would we have rather had Real Sociedad on that tie? I'm not sure. You know, I know they beat Galatasaray, we struggled against, but I still think I am confident we could get something from it. But
it can't be something. We have to win the game.
I've read this script before. I've seen this script before.
Yeah, it's essentially do or die, isn't it?
If AZ Alkmaar come to the stadium and try to defend this lead, I think it'll be convincingly. Spurs will win convincingly. I think if they come and take it to Spurs, it could be quite difficult. But as I said in the show, I think everything's clicking. Christian Romero and Van der Ven, they played 2 minutes. Solanke has come back. He rested Son, he rested Bergwijn. I think that's what he done.
Yeah.
Rested Maddison. So everything seems to be ticking into place. And this is the one game we need it for. Like you said, against Chelsea, brought those 2 defenders back, and it was like, they got injured, and it doesn't matter now. Bring them back. We need to win, because if we don't, he's going to be struggling, I think, and he could win Manager of the Month on the Friday and not have a job. So it's one of those, would you blame them if we went out to get rid of Ange? But like I said, I'm sticking my neck on the line. I think we'll go through. I really do. I think I'm very positive.
I know, I love that you're positive.
Levy did give Ange these cup games as well, and I'd say they're 3 of the worst performances of the season. So I think Levy will be looking at it and going like, I did give you because Levy has given him a chance. He sacked managers for less.
Well, yeah, but I actually don't think he physically could sack him.
What, financially or just?
No, I think financially we can do whatever we like. We could really just, buy good players as well. I think that he had no choice, because he decided to stick because of how. Yes, he sacked managers for less, right? But I feel like it got to a point, because we had so many injuries, that he then was kind of backed into a corner that he actually couldn't really sack him, because we needed to then figure out if it was actually the injuries that were making us so poor, or if it was Ange, or if it was a combination of both. Me, I lean a bit more now towards the side. It might be a combination of both, where I was very much, no, it's the injuries, and I've seen enough when people have been fit, but we're not seeing the consistency of that. So now I feel like if we were to go out of that, then he probably will pull the trigger, but I don't know if he'll do that until the summer. Someone like Iraola, who we spoke about before, or whether that is a Thomas Frank, or whether that's a Marco Silva, I still think Spurs is an attractive prospect. Of course, it's one of the biggest clubs, in the Premier League. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world. Like, it's not a United or whatever, but it's a proper top six club. It's got history, it's got pedigree in that sense. Might not be in the Premier League era, but life did start before the Premier League, which people like to forget. So I do think it is an exciting prospect to come to. My only thing is you do need to have consistency, and when you've chopped and changed so many different managers, we've had 5 managers in as many years pretty much, so I don't know how you can build the consistency or the stability that you need if you do then go and sack him. If you look at the neighbours down the road, the one thing I will give them credit for is they stuck with their manager, even when they were finishing 8th place, 5th place, whatever, because it laid the foundations and the groundwork. My fear is that we would do that, get rid of Ange. I know people will say, well, what is the groundwork? We're looking terrible. But you need to have a little bit more time to maybe implement what you want. And football is so quick these days. However, I think Iraola would be a great fit. He gives me a little bit of Poch energy. But at the same time, if the players aren't good enough, then you're not going to get the same results. And it's just really good recruitment, I guess, from Bournemouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And
don't have to break the bank.
Well, we look at Iraola, we look at Thomas Frank, and there's questions, why would they leave their football clubs? I mean, because it's Spurs and it's a huge club. It's a step up, unfortunately. That's no disrespect. It's a step up. So if they're available, you do all you can to get them. But I'm still optimistic Ange can turn this around. And I've got one foot on that Ange train left.
That's me.
And I think Thursday is the be all and end all for me. And he could potentially, if we go out then I will be, look, it doesn't really matter. Keep him to the end of the season, doesn't really matter. But what I'll say about this cup run, and I've been there as a player, and I got to the UEFA Cup semi-final against Marseille, and I tell you now, I don't remember where we come in the league. So forget the league. Everything, I know we've spoken about, everything goes into this competition, and if you go out then, I don't know where. 9 games to go in the Premier League. I don't know what you're going to see. I don't think we'll see Ange.
Well, you're just playing for pride now.
Exactly.
At that point, aren't you? I know that the performances might not mirror that there is that type of support, but maybe there is.
I think they back him. I just don't think they can play his style. Sometimes it is too much. It's the most distance covered, the most pressing in and out of possession. It's just too much, especially when you're playing 3 games a week. It's just not possible for top level players to do this, and the fact that nearly every one of our senior players has been injured at one point or another, and this is where I was very Ange in, but as the season's gone on, I've really questioned whether I am Ange in or Ange out. People say, oh, but he's had all these injuries, but they're probably from his style of play. Even Kulusevski's got injured and he'll run through brick walls. So it is really, it's a weird situation, and I think maybe with a manager who's a bit more conservative and maybe puts that line back a bit more, you won't see the likes of Mickey van der Ven getting injured and Romero getting injured, because they'll be able to adapt to a new style that's the problem is, and all Spurs fans think this, we've done Mourinho and Conte, we've done another project that's not really kicked on yet, so where do we go next? But there's a lot of good managers out there. I'm sad that Ange hasn't really worked out, and we could give him another half a season next year and see what happens, and see if this was just a bit of a blip. But do you chuck more money at him and more players and more youngsters and see what it's another year wasted then, isn't it?
The uniqueness about this, we've seen Christian Romero come out, haven't we, and half blame the board, and players are actively backing Ange. And when this is the Spurs' worst season in a number of years, and when you never hear a story coming out of somebody
they're those United ones where it's like they hate the training sessions and all that.
Or there's been a bust up in the training, but they're actively supporting Ange. So he has something about him. He's clearly a good manager that the players like, and the players clearly want it to work.
It's just whether it can.
And at the moment, it's not. Thursday, it's going to.
Okay, so one final question before we leave it for this week. If we go out on Thursday, Ange in or Ange out?
Ange out.
Ange out in the summer, yeah.
I'll land with Ange out in the summer.
That's a soft Ange.
That's horrible to say.
Ange out in the summer, but I'm still sad about it.
It's going to be Ange in, so don't worry.
Exactly. He's going to get through, and then we're just going to have a really positive week next week. Right, guys, thank you so much. Nice to see you, Darren. Nice to see you, Sonny. This is all we've got time for this week episode of Inside Spurs. Huge thank you to both, and we'll see you next time, where hopefully we are through to the next. Hopefully. See you soon, guys, and come on, you Spurs.